Oi pessoal, tudo bem? Eu sou a Ana, consultora educacional da Canucks Intercâmbio, e eu tô aqui de novo com a Jane. Ela tá aqui e vai dar 5 dicas de como você melhorar o seu aproveitamento do intercâmbio quando você vier pro Canadá. As we're talking about English thing, and Jane is a Canadian, her contacts is going to be here below, so you can contact her anytime to have classes with her, even you're in Brazil. But Jane, if our student is here in Canada, what's the most advice or the 5 most advice that you give to them to, get better or have a better improve?
Right. That's really tough because a lot of the students come here and they get together with someone that speaks their own language. And then they, for example, Portuguese, so they have lots of friends
like
speak Portuguese.
Me, myself,
Yes.
I'm guilty.
Yes. So it's really, really important to, first of all, expose yourself to the culture. And I know it's really hard for me to say, well, forget it, you don't need any Portuguese friends.
Make friends around.
Just make friends and you don't have to speak Portuguese at all. But I think it's also important to really find the balance because you also need some friends that you can communicate with and you can talk to about certain challenges that you have in a new culture. But being around an English-speaking environment is really important. So not only just English speakers who are Canadian, but also English speakers that are foreigners that also have the same challenges. So from all over the world, there's lots of Japanese students here and Korean students, and you can connect
I used to have a joke with my friends in Brazil since I was there. I used to tell them, adopt an Asian friend.
Right.
And here in Vancouver, it's like perfect.
It's perfect. Exactly.
There's Asian around.
Exactly. And so it'll push you to actually speak English, and that's really important, is that every day you should be speaking English. Or even volunteering at some place, but just try to do your very, very best to every day expose yourself in different English-speaking environments. It doesn't only have to be with friends. You can go play tennis, or you can go and read a book and talk about the book with your friend.
So now we are changing for the second advice.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now the second one could be hobbies or something that makes you interested with.
Yeah, so hobbies are great because we have a common ground. So if you like to do photography and I like to do photography and we are at an evening class or some type of a class or a meetup group or something that we both have the same interests and common ground, then that is an easy step for us to develop a friendship and maybe meet outside or maybe even in the class to find out what do you use, what lenses do you use, what cameras do you use. And that also kind of exposes you to certain people and dynamics and you get to speak English.
A lot of community centers here has this kind of
Absolutely. There's
classes,
so many
right?
community centers here. Every region in Vancouver has a community center. And I always recommend to our learners to really get out there, to really go to a community center, find out what classes they have, what interests you. There's a pamphlet, there's things online that you can check to see what programs are there. And at the same time, maybe there's some volunteer, maybe there's some events. Just working even or volunteering and to being around the Canadian culture is so important when you're here.
So this is the third advice maybe. If you volunteer or if you go to another place, could be a better thing to you. But the fourth one, you said something about online. So if you have something that really sparks your eye and you really interested in learning, you could learn online. You can start something online or maybe your English channel if you like something. Like camera, you said.
Absolutely.
So go online and watch videos online with this kind of topic that you're passionate about.
Exactly. So even the listening part of it is really good because you're listening to the English. If music music is a little bit more with if there are some words and phrases that you like, you can always check for them. But anything on news or anything at all, just listen and allow yourself to open your ears and listen to the English language. When I'm driving in the car, I know for me, CBC radio is on in my car all the time.
No. Virgin radio is the best one.
Well, for me.
Okay, for me, it's the word.
whatever it is that you like to. It's so great to have that the conversation that is, for example, Virgin Radio, the commentators, and they're talking to each other,
talk
and it's quite funny, right? The stories are
they make
funny.
jokes and
they make jokes. So CBC is a little more serious,
Yeah.
but whatever you're listening to, I think radio is really important. Just to even have the radio on, well, when I'm driving, but if you're not driving, you can have it when you're cooking,
or when you're in the SkyTrain as me.
when you're like on the SkyTrain, you can just listen to it, but really listen for some words if you can, and if you can't, that's okay too, as long as it's passive listening. That's all you really want, is just to kind of expose your ears to the sounds of the language, and also listen to the way that we talk as well. How does our voice go? Does it go up? Does it go down?
How the voice goes in the
Exactly.
sentences, how they connect
Exactly.
words.
Yeah, and even just the way I'm talking to you right now, there's certain words that we use. Exactly, for sure, absolutely. Things like that you can kind of catch and try to use it. Try to incorporate it into your language when you're communicating with someone.
And the fifth and last one right now, I think classes is really something that makes a difference for myself now that I'm learning. And we are talking about a little bit of classes earlier. So what do you think about the better way to the students learn another language?
Classes are really important, of course. Big class sizes, I'm not too crazy about, because you're sitting back and you're doing a lot of the academic side. But definitely it's important, because you learn the grammars and the sentence structures and things like that. But once you develop some type of skills, it's very important as well to be in a small class size, or even one-on-one with
I'm doing right now.
like you're doing, yes. And for you, we're focusing on preparing for the IELTS,
yeah.
and so we have some type of a goal, and so we're preparing you. But if you just want to improve your English skills, one-on-one or a small class size is also great, because you get that practice. It's like playing tennis. You pass the ball, and then and then the teacher will pass it back to you, and you can kind of have that repertoire that you talk and they talk, and but also to have that vocabulary words. If there's some vocabularies that come up, to really write them down. I know at ETC what we do is we have a certain amount of vocabulary words that we have, and if we bring in the topic, then those are relevant vocabulary words inside the topic that we really want you to elevate and for you to use it inside. So some expressions and some idioms and things like that. But having some type of a school to increase your expressions, to increase your vocabulary is important, and you're not going to get that as much when it's a big class size. So once you're in a level with upper intermediate and advanced class, really try to look for a school that has small class sizes with not just random conversations where you just talk about whatever you want to talk about, but to have something guided, that if you're going to be talking about tennis games or politics or whatever it is, there's a certain amount of vocabulary words inside that topic that you want to express, and you want to increase your words.
This makes sense, because for me, I'm the kind of level that if I have group classes, I'm not going to feel that I'm improving my English. But with Jane, I could feel that in certain kinds of topics, I had to use some vocabulary specific for that. So from my point of view and for my own experience, that is amazing.
And you haven't joined any group classes yet?
No.
So one day, hopefully, you'll join some group classes, and you can see the difference. Yeah.
But for sure, it's making a huge difference that I was studying one-on-one.
Definitely, when you're coming here, you really want to do so many different things. To have the activities that it's outside, to have the academic learning. And some of our learners, they come here and they just work. That's all they do, is they come here and they work, and they always kind of come to me and say, well, my vocabulary is not improving and my English is very limited and I can't do it. Well, you do need someone and an educational facility or something to really kind of push that skills and that level, and for you to also just to have that confidence.
So. You teach something related for specific things, like if they want to do for interview or some kind of thing that you help them with the vocabulary or how you talk about yourself and all those
Exactly.
things, right?
So yes, for job interviews, even for myself, and English is my first language, is that when I go to a job interview, I have to prepare. I have to write down the expressions. I have to ask my friend to kind of check. And English is my first language. So when you're coming to another language with a job interview, you're already nervous, and so yeah, you're nervous, and you want to express yourself in a way that makes sense and that you will get the job. So we have special classes to prepare you for that. So you will talk and say, for example, tell me something about yourself. And then once you feel comfortable, then of course we kind of clean up a little bit of your answers and make sure that if we understand you, that if we understand you, then of course everyone else will understand you as well. To clean up your answers and everything else. So when you do go for that interview, you're using the right words, you're expressing yourself correctly, and you feel comfortable and confident. I think that's really important.
That's the point that you got the job.
Yes, exactly. I think just a couple of classes just to polish yourself up is great. And also if you're working in office, sometimes we have learners that already have jobs and they're, for example, in the computer field, and they have their techniques and everything else, but when they go for lunch with their colleagues, they have no idea what they're saying. So we also have these certain classes that to help them to break the ice, to talk, and to again feel confident and comfortable, because a lot of the times you don't have that exposure and the experience to have that conversation and
to break the ice and start something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Se você quer contatar a Jane, tanto se você está aqui em Vancouver quanto se você ainda está aí no Brasil, tanto para aulas preparatórias de IELTS, TOEFL, ou para práticas de entrevista, que foi aí um pouquinho do final do vídeo que a gente deu esse overview. Os links e todos os contatos, todas as informações vão estar aqui embaixo. Você pode contar com a Conecta Intercâmbio no seu planejamento de estudos. Eu vou deixar o link do agendamento aqui embaixo. Também é só clicar no vídeo. Se você ainda tiver mais alguma pergunta que quiser deixar pra Jane, pode deixar aqui embaixo que eu vou pedir pra ela responder pra gente. Thank you, Jane,
Thank you for having me.
And bye, guys.
Bye.